Ladies and gentlemen, segment number 15 of Instant Reaction right here on the Eastern Observer is presented to you by Black Cats NYC alongside College Hoops Digest's very own Josh Adams. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We got a chance to see beyond amazing action yesterday in day number 3 of the 2022 Big East tournament. Creighton and Providence, the 4 taking on the 1. Creighton absolutely dominated Providence in that first contest yesterday, Josh. And then, of course, in the nightcap, the main event was UConn and Villanova, the 3 taking on the 2 in the Big East tournament. And Josh, to start things off, of course, Creighton took down Providence by a score of 85-58, and a big 31-2 run really said a lot about this Creighton team heading into the final tonight.
Well, it's shocking to see how well Creighton played against Providence, but I guess it shouldn't be shocking at the end of the day. You know, I saw a stat when I was reading about it this morning where Creighton's been in the Big East now for 9 seasons, and they've made the Big East championship game in 4 of those 9 seasons. That's almost, I'm not a mathematician, Joey, but that's almost half. So there's something about when Greg McDermott takes his Creighton team into Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament, they play their best basketball. And they sure showed it yesterday. Again, that 31-2 run in front of from what I understand, a very pro-Providence crowd. It's impressive, that Creighton's dealt with some serious injuries, and they ended the season losing at home to Seton Hall, and to make this kind of run in the Big East tournament, nothing short of remarkable.
It's really amazing to see what Greg McDermott's team did yesterday. You look at some of the statistics here. Alex O'Connell, of course, 18 points, 5 of 10 from the floor, 4 of 6 from downtown, and that was a big difference yesterday in the contest. 9 of 23 for Creighton from downtown, 3 of 24 for Providence, a measly 13% from distance. And then, of course, just a couple of days ago, Josh, you and I, we were talking about Al Durham on the floor of Madison Square Garden when he went 0 for 7 in that contest against Butler. And then all of a sudden, in the last minute or two of that game, Al Durham hits that go-ahead 3 to put Providence into the semifinal round yesterday. And funny enough, he was the one that led the entire charge with 21.7 of 12, 2 of 4. For this Providence team, is this a little concerning when you get run out of a building like this? When we spoke about this a couple of nights ago, Josh, where I think it was 15-2 in single-digit games that Providence is able to come back and defeat its opponent, but they could not get it done against Creighton. Is that a little worrisome heading into the NCAA tournament?
I think it would be. I think they're going to get a favorable venue to start. They'll probably end up in Buffalo. So they won't have to travel that far. And it seems like they're pretty locked in at a 4 seed. So I expect them to get past at least the round of 64. But, yeah, when you start getting to the round of 32, it could get dicey for the Friars. There's reason to think that a lot of pundits have said that, maybe their record's a little bit fraudulent, maybe because, as we know, they played Seton Hall shorthanded. They had a bunch of games they canceled because of COVID that they never got to make up.
Yep. And
it could have ended up a little bit different for them this year, as the ball bounces. And maybe yesterday is everything sort of caught up with them a little bit. I think losing by 30 in the Big East semifinals is really maybe a giant red, warning sign for them. But I think Ed Cooley will have them, they'll go back to Providence. They'll work on what they need. And that team does have a tremendous amount of talent with Durham, Minaya, Watson. I mean, they could get it together, I think. They're a veteran team. So I don't think Creighton's a 30-point better team than Providence at the end of the day. Sometimes your team just doesn't show up. It happens, but there's definitely it's been sort of a fairy tale season, like we talked about the other day, and Cinderella turned into a pumpkin in the Big East semifinals last night. So back to the drawing board for the NCAA tournament.
It says so much about Creighton too, because Josh, we remember a couple of years ago when Greg McDermott was suspended for a little bit due to some racist comments that were made. And then all of a sudden we got a chance to see some folks decommitting from the program. And all of a sudden, with no Marcus Zagorowski in the fold as well, he declared for the draft. He's now out here on Long Island actually playing for the Nets. This is a completely different program that was really overlooked. And a lot of folks had said, and as you brought up the best word, a lot of media pundits had brought up how this Creighton team is really going to go through some issues because they need to refine that identity. But it looks as if that, Josh, they have exactly what's there. Greg McDermott is just that good of a coach. And he's just leading this charge and this Creighton team all the way to the Big East tournament final. And you look at some of the records too. They are 4-0 in the semifinal round. 4-0 in the semifinal round. And I remember we were sitting in the press conference room a couple of days ago, and I remember when the person asked that, I don't remember who exactly it was, but that person asked him about that 4-0 record, and I remember he rolled his eyes. I'll never forget, he rolled his eyes, and he was not happy that was brought up, but of course he had to answer it. It's almost like a jinx, but sure. Now it's now he's on his way going up against Villanova, which is awesome, but it just shows how well coached, despite any adversity that goes through Omaha, in the middle of America, of course, John Rothstein, in the middle of America, that you can still get the job done and you can still beat down some of the best in the country, Josh.
Well, I think I saw a clip yesterday from the press conference after the game with him, and McDermott gives his son a lot of credit. His son Doug a lot of credit for sort of, putting Creighton on the main stage, because it really sort of, when they transitioned over from the MVC to the Big East, it was Doug McDermott that really kind of made a statement in the Big East tournament to begin with. And they sort of just ascended from there. He's a fan. McDermott, I confess that I didn't think much of him as a coach, and that's probably my ignorance, probably my East Coast bias more than anything else. but the guy can flat out coach. And there's Omaha they have a tremendous fan base. Every Big East coach is always impressed when they go out there, how much support they have. Like McDermott said yesterday, the players are rock stars in Omaha. They're the only game in town. And what they have out there is seems very special. And I can tell you that talking with people who have like John Fana, who goes out there quite a lot for games, that it's special. Creighton's a special place, and it's a place probably that we should go out to at some point in time, because whatever they're doing, it's obviously working in the Big East, and they keep finding, like you said, Alex O'Connell, the transfer from Duke. Alex O'Connell just wouldn't transfer anywhere. I mean, there's got to be something special going on there, and they're just going to keep rolling. And now they were a 10 seed. I saw now that they might move up to the 8-9, and they win the Big East tournament. They could get a 7. So it's fantastic, especially the injuries they've had this year. And it's really, you want them to be a little bit more consistent during the Big East Conference season. But, if you're going to make a run in every single Big East tournament that you're in, you're going to get an NCAA bid. So, hey, can't knock it. The Blue Jays have it going on.
And also, speaking about, finding a rhythm out in Omaha, Ryan Hawkins is a former Division II transfer. And the best part about this entire story that not a lot of folks know about is when we were at Carnesecca Arena a couple of weeks ago, when Ryan Nemhard went down with the broken wrist, Ryan Hawkins came out and absolutely dominated, and he put the team on his back. He and Ryan Kalkbrenner, as well as Trey Alexander, put the team on their back. There's no doubt what Ryan Hawkins brings to this program as a D2 transfer. Do you know, Josh, how they met? Do you know how they met? It's absolutely surreal. He came out and said Greg McDermott, that Ryan Hawkins was playing basketball in the school that his daughter was playing volleyball in. Now,
Is that right?
and we've heard over and over again in our lifetime that certain things are meant to be. This not only is meant to be, but it's so amazing how just in this one little D2 school, he's now a star in the Big East. How crazy is that?
You think it's a coincidence, but it probably, there's probably something a little bit higher up going on there with Hawkins. Plus, you have to factor in that injury to Nemhard too, against St. John's. By the way, he was a fantastic. I mean, he was fantastic the entire year. Think about how good Creighton would be now with him in the Big East tournament. After that collision with Posh Alexander. I mean, I think he was leading the Big East at point guards in minutes, and he was up there in points and assists. So they're going to be there. I don't know if we're going to do the prediction. I don't expect them obviously to win tonight, but this season's just been a rousing success for the Blue Jays, and man, I'm never going to sleep on them again. I think I've learned my lesson now to not take them lightly in the Big East tournament.
Well, of course, in segment number 15, we will be discussing our predictions in a few moments. But first, of course, we still have to get through some business here, and we still have to touch upon with Providence. And the reason why, of course, we bring them up again is because there was a quote yesterday, Josh, that was asked in the press conference that Coach Cooley really loved, and he flat out said that was a fantastic question. The question was, back on January 4th, quote, back on January 4th, Marquette beat you by 32, and you responded from that by winning your next 8 straight. So with this loss from tonight, how confident are you knowing that they responded by getting hot and stringing along a lot of wins in a row, that you could do the same in the NCAA tournament next week? And Coach Cooley said, what's funny? Were you in that locker room? That's exactly what I told this team. So we discuss obviously about the issues with Providence. We discuss the likes of Nate Watson, where he was not a factor at all. 5 points, 2 of 7, 1 rebound in 25 total minutes. And then you look at the rest of the bench, where they typically play with a rotation of 8. Ed Croswell, only 2 points, 0 of 4 from the floor. Is there any sign of hope, maybe, or even optimism that this team can string off 8 points? I know we brought up, obviously, once they get into that round of 32, but now on the mental side, not even what's on the bracket, on the mental side, can it be done when you keep having in your head we're 15-2 in these, or 14-3 or whatever it is, in these such tight games? Can we get over the hump against a non-Big East opponent?
Well, we all know how good of a motivator Ed Cooley is as a coach, and how much of a player's coach he is, how much of his players, really buy into the program. So what he said is probably gospel after that game in the locker room to them. And, that's not a young team. That's a veteran team that he has up there in Providence. And I forgot about that loss that they had to Marquette. So that is a good talking, point for him. That's an excellent question, whoever asked it too. Yeah. You will have games like this. I mean, no matter how good you are. But Cooley, he has that ability to connect with his players. Talk to the players who have played with him. They love the guy. They absolutely love him. And I really think they'll go back up there to Providence and regroup. Yeah. Use that game against Marquette as sort of the standard. Now, will they, win 6 straight to get to the national championship? I think that's pretty suspect. But at the same time, they're going to be playing in front of a friendly crowd, and I think there's a good possibility. This is all dependent on the draw, because there's matchups that definitely will not favor Providence. They'll have problems against, say a real fast SEC team if they get matched up with that. But to your point, Joey, and to Ed's point, using that, Ed's a master of turning the negative into a positive, and I think yesterday's loss will just be used as sort of a, fuel in the fire moving forward in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. And one more thing regarding Providence for all the folks out there watching, keep in mind too, for those that might be a little hesitant on where Providence can go in terms of the tournament, 3 games, quality games that they did not play this season was away at Seton Hall against UConn, and also another game against Creighton as well. They did not play 3 quality games that they missed out on. And a lot of folks out there, Josh, they're saying, well, there might be a little asterisk next to that to that Big East regular season championship, but we digress there and we move on to the next game, of course.
Ask any UConn fan about that.
Exactly. Well, UConn and Villanova, 63-60 victory. Villanova comes out on top. What a game last night. Jermaine Samuels, 21 points. And keep in mind, too, folks, Jermaine Samuels was he couldn't walk a few hours prior to the game. And that's what Jay Wright had emphasized this entire tournament for them. Of course, they started their contest or their Big East tournament journey, if you will, on Thursday night against St. John's. They almost lost 66-65, which, again, Josh, you and I were on the floor. We were talking about it at MSG. And then last night, they won just by 3. So a combined margin of +4 for them. It's a little scary. Again, they don't have a lot of depth, but they just continue to find ways to get it done night in and night out.
Well, Samuels had a monster game yesterday, right? And he had triple doubles. They had 21 points, 12 and 10, I think, yesterday.
He had 12 boards, 21 points, and let's see. No, it was just double there.
Double, okay.
Yeah.
Samuels wasn't supposed to play against St. John's.
Yeah.
When I talked to, our Big East insider prior to the game, someone who knows, he didn't expect Samuels to play at all. Samuels wasn't even on the bench against St. John's to open up that game. He's still riding a stationary bike to keep his, he's suffering from back spasms. So he has to keep his back loose. So he's riding a stationary bike, on the sidelines, during timeouts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To put up that type of effort, against St. John's and against UConn last night. And we both saw how tough a team UConn is, especially on the defensive side of the ball against Seton Hall the previous night. Again, there's Jay Wright just brings out his best in players in prime time. And Samuels just goes along, with the Chris Jenkins of the world and of just being able to step up when necessary and make those big shots. And I'm not surprised Villanova won, but after what we saw on quarterfinal Thursday, I thought it was a 50-50 proposition with UConn because UConn looked UConn looked ready. They looked ready to take it yesterday.
Yeah.
And so another big one for Villanova, and crazy enough is that a Villanova Creighton Big East final. Last time that happened, the ACC tournament was happening in Brooklyn with Duke winning the ACC tournament. So it's kind of one of those weird coincidences. But I know because I went to both. So I was like, this is weird. Villanova and Creighton are playing again in the final while the ACC tournament's in Brooklyn. So with Duke probably going to win tonight. So it's what can you say about Villanova? They are the gold standard of the Big East.
It's really amazing to see what Villanova did. Colin Gillespie, again, did not light up the scoreboard. 2 of 5 from the floor, just 5 points, but his assists is what mattered. He had 10 assists. Brandon Slater, Caleb Daniels. I mean, there is so much to say, and I wish that I'm thinking about it now. Of course, that one block on that turnover by UConn, all of it, or rather the turnover by Villanova, and then Brandon Slater coming back using all force, what he was able to do on that block on Tyrese Martin coming up. That was, I think, a massive turning point of the game, because then again you had. Which at one point, which we saw, of course, the Garden was pretty much a 50-50 split between fans. an amazing UConn contingency, and then of course Villanova had their own folks as well. And this is the first time too that UConn and Villanova have gone head to head in I don't know how many years since I think since or at the Garden anyway since the original Big East.
Yeah.
And now, Josh, just again what you saw yesterday from Brandon Slater, which is another amazing game too, and these names that you're not used to hearing, the Colin Gillespies of the world, the Justin Moores of the world. You have guys like Jermaine Samuels that, again, who as Jay Wright brought up, could barely walk. He had back spasms. They had to bring up a special chiropractor from Philadelphia that got him ready in a span of however long, which I think there's a little more to that as well, but we'll digress there. But again, it's still amazing to see where the man could barely walk and he still puts up 21 points in a Big East semifinal. Again, depth could be a problem for Villanova. Do you see this team heading potentially to an Elite Eight or even a Final Four, or is that too far to say?
Well, I think it all depends on the draw. What you were saying about Slater's true. The fact that, don't forget, he's the one who hit those 2 free throws against St. John's to ice the game again for Villanova in the quarterfinal Thursday.
Sure did.
And then comes up big, in the final seconds against UConn. Again, these guys, I don't want to say they come out of nowhere, but, Slater's just been money in the final minute in both of these games. Villanova's depth is concerning, but that said, I don't think there's any better coach in the nation than Jay Wright. I think Colin Gillespie is the Big East Player of the Year. So Eric Dixon is a load. I think he gives Villanova something that they haven't had in a little bit, which is a real presence in the middle and can get those rebounds that they need. Are they an Elite Eight team? I'd be interested in the draw, but they're going to get a favorable, round of 64 and 32 opponent. They'll probably end up in Pittsburgh. And sure, get them. Sweet 16. I think I'd say Sweet 16 this year.
Yeah.
I think I think you're right. I don't think they're deep enough to make, as a lot of Jay Wright's teams are to make a Final Four. But yeah, an elite team, they're going to get a 2 seed. It looks like if they win today, and they're definitely going to be favorable. They're going to be fine. I mean, Gillespie, we saw it in person against St. John's. He's such a smart and heady player, and that's what you need in March, is that to have that sort of experience at point guard. Not a lot of teams have that sort of player in Gillespie, and they can really ride him. When depth and experience are the 2 factors that usually has a team win a national championship. And while Villanova doesn't have the depth like we just talked about, the experience that Colin Gillespie has, they can carry that a long way.
Josh, you look on the flip side, obviously with UConn. You look at what happened yesterday in the last few moments with Adama Sanogo. There was a key rebound that he did miss that went right through his hands, and then Villanova was able to regain possession. He had a double-double yet again, 15 points, 13 boards, but of course, rebound number 14 he simply could not secure. And he was, I don't want to say he was getting a lot of heat for it, but there were things that there were questions that had to be asked about that in the press conference afterwards, because I believe if he would have secured that one offensive rebound, I think that the outcome would have been completely different. We saw yesterday and even the day before, Danny Hurley, really being well, first off, he's a fantastic meme. Whenever he gets mad with some of the calls, that we could tell you for starters. And we expect some GIFs and memes to definitely be up on the internet. I don't know, yesterday. But all joking aside, though, this is a different team from last year. It's not focused around James Bouknight anymore. Bouknight's off to the NBA, so now they've got a lot more spread out offense. That you have some, a lot of players that have come into their own since Bouknight has left. He is not the only one that is, he's not the go-to guy. Now it's, you've got Cole, Martin, Sanogo, Whaley at times, who, by the way, did not have a point yesterday, which was a little concerning, if you will. But does this UConn team potentially present some, troubles for their future opponent. Listen, last year they lost to Maryland. It was not a good showing in the round of 64, or in the round of 64. It was not great.
UConn, I see them as a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
5-12 is always sort of a dangerous, the 5-12 game is always a dangerous game. An intriguing matchup. What I saw, I think a couple bracketology people had was 5-12 being UConn Rutgers in Buffalo, which would be a fantastic matchup, between those teams. I think those teams would really go to war with one another, with two of the better coaches in Steve Peichel and Danny Hurley. Again, UConn's solid. I know people want to wreck on Sonogo yesterday. Number one, I'll say this, that Sonogo, if he comes back, he's my Big East Player of the Year next year candidate. If I could place a future on that, I think he's the Big East Player of the Year next year. And he's fantastic. I mean, he's his presence alone, he just dominates at points. And I can't fault them. They're kids. Rebound slips through your fingers. It happens. I mean, the same thing happened with Villanova St. John's. That rebound that Slater got slipped right through Champagne's hands. I mean, that St. John's could have secured the game. So, I'm not going to sit here and point fingers at these guys when, it just happens late in games.
We're all human.
Absolutely. It happens in the NBA. It happens in the pros. It happens at any level. I mean, the ball gets slippery at points. It's just the way it goes. The old "that's where the ball bounces" cliche. But
yeah,
UConn moving forward at 5-12. Anyone you talk to has said that UConn could definitely make a run in the NCAA tournament. And from what we saw, if Cole's a fantastic guard, and the guy who didn't work out was Jackson. He's what they call one of those. I think Ken Miller used to call Mike Enzi his Swiss Army knife player, that he can do just about everything.
Andre Jackson's exactly that. Yeah.
Jackson's that type of player for them, and that's the type of player that in March is just absolutely invaluable. You need that type of player. So, yeah, UConn looking into the crystal ball, 5-12. Rutgers would present a problem, by the way, but I think Rutgers could beat them. But barring that, I'd expect them to beat whatever 4 they would play next, and move along to whichever region they're in. Regional they're in.
Yeah, it's going to be tons of fun to see what Selection Sunday is going to have for some of the locals, because exactly what you said, we've got a bunch. But just before Selection Sunday, though, Josh, we do have the Big East Tournament Championship tonight. That will feature Villanova and Creighton. And as you brought up just a few moments ago about the last time that the ACC tournament was here in New York, those two teams did battle as well in the championship, and Villanova eventually, of course, came out on top. But will we see different, a different, first off, different atmosphere tonight, and number two, will we see a completely different matchup than we did even during the regular season, even during, even that last Big East championship?
I believe Villanova's experience prevails tonight. At the end of the day, I think, Gillespie really steps it up today, and Samuels continues to, whatever this special chiropractor from Philadelphia is doing. I have to look him up for my back. If he's that good that they're bringing him up on a train to fix his back, then these
minutes too. That's pretty crazy. Some
real Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid stuff right there. Get them all set for the game. Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I think Slater intrigues me. I think he's one of those players that could make a name for himself. There's always a couple players in the tournament that really, have been in the shadows all year, and then they kind of step up. And I think Slater's one of those guys who, could have a game tonight and NCAA tournament moving forward. Start to make a name for himself, building towards next year. Villanova rolls tonight. They rolled in the championship game in 16. They had a better team, obviously, and I think Creighton's had a little better team than that year as well. But yeah, I think we'll just go chalk tonight. I had Villanova winning this tournament from the get go, and I think Creighton's it runs out tonight, but heck of a run. All credit to the Blue Jays, but Villanova's going to win. You're going to score prediction. I think it'll be pretty low scoring. I think it'll probably be like a 68-60 game between the two.
Well, the last time these two teams met, we brought up 2017, 74-60 was the score in that contest, Villanova and Creighton. Josh, I'm going to tell you this. I think that this little combined +4 margin for Villanova in the two games that they've played, I think it's going to be pretty much the same thing, but I think it's going to be another 3-point game, and I think it's going to be another nail biter. And I think just because of what Creighton has presented in this tournament, they have the depth. They also have a few other players that have really come into their own. How about Arthur Kaluma from yesterday? 17 points, 6 of 12 from the floor. He's another one that can really do some damage. And then again, you also have another player by the name, and I'll always mess this up, but Rati Andrankashvili. He comes in, again, not a name that we have really any clue of who he is, but he does the little things that Greg McDermott needs him to do. I think Villanova will come out on top, and I'm going to still say it's going to be 65-62 in favor of Creighton. But again, in favor of Villanova.
Okay.
But again, I just think that this depth is going to provide a problem. But as you said, the experience will prevail. There's no doubt about it. That's
low scoring, though. We agree it's going to be a low scoring affair.
100%. And Villanova's defense has really come into its own this season again. And I can't wait to see what Brandon Slater has in mind on a couple of blocks. If the team turns the ball over recklessly. Yeah. It should be a ton of fun. But Josh, thank you so much for joining me here on day number 3 recap on our instant reaction segment number 15 show. It's going to be a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, of course, 6 p.m. Eastern time, right on Fox, is going to be Villanova and Creighton, the 2 and the 4 seed, going head to head for the first time since 2017 in the Big East Tournament Championship, when Villanova took Creighton down 74-60. Ladies and gentlemen, alongside Josh Adams of College Hoops Digest, I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us here at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, we will see you for segment number 16, to be determined.